My next guest is going to be back in action, taking on Fernie Garcia at UFC Fight Night, November 19th. It's Brady Hiestand joining me here live in the car right now. Brady, how are you?
I'm doing great. Just sitting outside of my jiu-jitsu gym. So after this interview, go in and get some rolls.
Well, I don't want to make you late here, so we'll keep this interview pretty brief, but appreciate the time, man. We have not seen you fight since last year. I know there's been a lot of reports and stuff, but for those who might not know, what has taken you so long to get back in the cage?
Yeah. So I actually just had ACL surgery like the month after the Ricky fight. I fought to the whole Ultimate Fighter without my ACL, and so after the show, that would be a good time to get it fixed.
Was this the right amount of time to come back after the injury? Like, when were you cleared to train again, full force?
So I was cleared about 7 months, like 7.5 months to train not full. You know, it's kind of a weird injury because you got to kind of figure it out as you go and kind of build off of it. But I think at 9 months is when they fully cleared me. But you know, I was training all the way back at 5 months, just taking it at my own pace. But yeah, I think this is a great amount of time. I actually, you know, I'm 3 weeks out and I feel like I could fight tomorrow. You know, my coach is like,
Nice.
we don't know what to do with you. You're ready to go. But that's just because I'm always in the gym, even when I'm injured or whatever. I'm always ready.
Tough finale. I know it was a while ago. And again, we talked about the injury there. What did you take away the most from that you're bringing into this fight?
You know, it was such a big moment, and you know, it was such a close fight that I just realized that it could taken away from the fight. I gotta not let it be that close, and I can't let it go to the judges. I think we saw in the fights this weekend is you let it go to the judges, they're only there to break your heart, and
Yeah.
so you can't let the judges make the decisions. You got to go out there and finish fights. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
planning on doing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Really big card on the weekend. You know, you mentioned that fight in particular, the Piotr Jan and Sean O'Malley fight. What did you think of that decision? Because a lot of people felt like it should have gone Jan's way.
You know, I agree. I think it should have gone Jan's way. I think O'Malley had, you know, it was pretty close on the feet. I think O'Malley had a few more significant strikes, and he had that really good knee, but I feel like it was pretty close other than that. And then the amount of control time and the amount of takedowns that Jan had, I feel like that should have tipped the scales way more than it did.
And speaking of injuries, what did you think of the co-main event? TJ Dillashaw after the fight tells everyone that he had separated his shoulder in April, and you know he didn't want to miss out on this opportunity, which I get. I mean, you got to get paid, right? But at the same time, we didn't really get a fight on Saturday. What did you make of that whole thing?
You know, I think it's kind of you know, coming from a guy that's fought injured, you know, I feel like that's up to the athlete, and you got to kind of take responsibility for that. You can't, if you're going to be injured, you got to know that you can still go out there and fight. Like I had torn my ACL before the fight, but I knew I could still go out there and perform. I feel
Mhm.
like in TJ's situation, he threw his own shoulder out in the first round, so it almost makes me feel like he just fought to get a paycheck, you know. And it's just like I feel like that's not really professional, and that's not you know, it's not fair to the fans that came and wanted to watch a fight, and then you just go out there and get injured. But you never know. You never know if maybe he thought he could fight and he thought he could make it through. But yeah, it was just kind of a bummer to see that fight go through like that.
And then obviously also on that card we have Beneil Dariush getting the win over Gamrot. What did you make of his performance after being off for so long? He looked really good.
Yeah, he looked great. You know, my teammate Mike Yesa, he fought him back in the day, so I was actually watching it with Mike that day, so we were watching that fight hella close, and it's cool to see Beneil. You know, he's getting a little bit, you know, white in his hair. He's getting a little bit older, but he's still killing it against Gamrot, who's a savage and doesn't get tired and always pushing forward. So you know, it's good for Beneil, and I think he should, you know, after my coach Volk beats Islam, he could go and fight for that title too.
Love it. And just obviously got to mention the main event, Islam Makhachev getting it done over Charles Oliveira. What did you think of his performance?
You know, that surprised me. I thought Charles was gonna, you know, do a little bit better, but you know, I feel like people were saying that he was gonna quit and all this stuff, and I feel like, you know, in some ways maybe he did. Like I don't think he quit, but it was just I feel like it was a little bit less of a fight than I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was gonna be way more competitive, and I thought the ground game was gonna be, you know, a little bit more competitive than it was. Than Islam just jumping on top and grabbing that submission after knocking him down.
Let's talk about your opponent, Fernie Garcia, 10-2 record. What do you know about him? How do you feel like you match up against him here?
You know, yeah, 10-2. He's got a deep record. He's been around for a while. He's a little bit older. I feel like the UFC keeps having me fight these older guys. But yeah, I like the matchup. You know, he's a good boxer. Doesn't throw a lot of kicks, but I assume he's a good wrestler. I see a lot of submission wins on his record. So He knows how to grapple and stuff. I feel like I match up great, and I feel like once I beat him, if I finish him, because he's never been finished before, and the goal is to always finish my guys. I go out there and finish a guy that's never been finished. It's going to look so good on my resume, and I can build off that.
Who've been some of the main training partners this camp that are helping you get ready for this fight?
Yeah, so I got a lot of good training partners. I got a lot of my guys that have come up with me, like Ashton Charlton, Bryce Wyatt, who's going pro actually on the 5th. And then I got a lot of old guys like Mike Hiestand has been in my corner, my last few fights, and he's been helping a lot with this camp. Sam Cecilia has been one of my main training partners. We throw down on the weekends. He's fought in the UFC a bunch, so he's been good. Another guy, Ethan Rhodes, who's, his nickname's the Rhino, and he's just built tough. And so we've been training a bunch, and a few guys over from Montana. So, I got a good team around me, obviously led by Coach Rick Little, and I go and train at jiu-jitsu gym called Alpha in Newborn. But yeah, a lot of training, a lot of work getting put in, and I'm blessed.
What's it like being part of the new guard at Sick Jitsu? You mentioned, some of the names there, Chiesa, Cecilia, Juliana Pena. These were all names that were the original Sick Jitsu, and now you're part of this new wave. What does it mean to be a part of that? And you got a bunch of up-and-comers like yourself that are, still making their name. How cool is that?
It's so cool. Yeah, like you said, we're like the new generation of Sick Jitsu, and it's cool because we got like these guys that have made such big names. Obviously, Mike, top of the world, Sam's fought in Bellator, UFC, and Juliana's obviously was the world champion. So they paved the way. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants. You got a lot you can learn from them and build off that.
How's the weight cut going? I mentioned the layoff off the top, and sometimes it can get a bit tougher to keep the weight down when you're not actually preparing for a fight. So how's all that going ahead of the matchup? We got a lot of time, obviously.
Yeah, definitely still got a lot of time, and I get pretty diligent with my diet and stuff, but outside of camp I can get pretty big. I think the biggest I got was almost 170, so it's been a journey to get back down. I love my fried chicken, my pizza, my wings, all that good stuff. But yeah, since I heard about this fight, got started meal prepping, all that good stuff, so my weight's coming down. It's looking good.
I'm sure Rick Little will be in your corner. Who else will be in the cage with you that night?
So gonna have my main guy, Ashton Charlton. We're both coming up. He's gonna be in the UFC soon, so he's gonna be there. And then Mike Chiesa.
Love it. That's good, man. And I know you feel like you're gonna win. Otherwise, why sign the contract? But how do you see the fight playing out on November 19th?
I see it. I see myself being pretty dominant. I see myself going on the first round. It's gonna be competitive. I feel like anyone can fight a good first round. And then I think as the rounds go on in the second, he's gonna start wilting under my pressure. And I don't know how it's going to go, either whether it be KO or submission, but I know it's going to be a good one.
The Ultimate Fighter obviously is, a life-changing experience for a lot of people. How was your overall experience on the show?
I loved it. It was, like you said, it was a life-changing experience. I went into that fight or I went into the house, and I had never been away from home longer than like a couple weeks, because I was 21 at the time. And I had never not talked to my family for more than like a week. And so going into the house, it was like I was on my own for the first time and I had ever experienced. And so it was kind of a becoming of age. I don't know, becoming a man, I guess, because I didn't have my brother there. I didn't have my mom. I didn't have any of my family or anything like that. So it was more relying on myself. And I got to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And, being a fighter was what I came out with. And so it kind of made me figure out my life path. And then obviously meeting Volk, seeing how he trains and how he works with his team was super inspiring. And then being a part of a team like that was awesome.
Do you still keep in touch with anyone from the cast?
Yeah, a lot of guys, actually. It's funny, the guy I keep in touch with the most is obviously my roommate, the guy I fought, Josh Reddinghouse. He's from Spokane, so
yep.
We've trained countless times since then. I still talk to Volk all the time. I saw him after Juliana's second fight with Amanda. I trained with Ludovic, Ryder, Brian Battle, talked to Mitch, Scrappy, everybody. Yeah, they became good friends. When you spend 6 weeks in a house with guys and you have no communication with anyone else, you guys get pretty close.
And then obviously I know the focus is on November 19th, but I've always wondered, have you ever wanted a rematch with Chad and Helliger? Actually, I don't know if you know this. I did commentary for that fight, and I don't think people remember, or maybe if they haven't seen the fight, you were actually winning the fight, and Chad obviously came out on top, but is that a fight you'd ever want back?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would like it, especially if he gets another win. If we both come off a win, I wouldn't mind fighting him again. I feel like you said, I was winning that fight, and I thought it was an early stoppage. I feel like I got up right after the ref pulled me off. I was pissed off. I was walking around, and so I don't feel like I really lost that fight. I feel like I was winning, and it was an early stoppage in some different guy's home country. So I was pretty pissed about that loss, and I'd love to give it back if he's still around. I know he's getting a little bit older, but that was Brady when he was 19. If we run it back now when Brady's 23, I think it's a completely different story.
And I just remember being so impressed. I remember after that fight and then you getting on the Ultimate Fighter, I was like, man, keep an eye on this kid, because I remember how good of a performance that was. And you're exactly right. Like, for context, Chad is from Alberta, but the fight was in British Columbia, but still Canada. I mean, obviously we know who, obviously the promotion wants the Canadian guy to win, right? So it's one of those things too. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Had you been up to Canada before prior to that?
I think I had visited once. I went to Red Mountain. I've been skiing since I was little, so I went up and did a little ski trip. But no, I've never fought or trained or anything like that up there.
You've never gone to Whistler before? Because I know it's a bit of a hike from Spokane, but it's beautiful. It's only a couple hour drive from, because I actually live in Vancouver, so I'm pretty close to Whistler.
No, I've heard about Whistler. I've heard great things about a lot of mountains up there, and maybe I'll win a few more fights, and then I can go take some vacations up there.
There you go, rent a chalet or something, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. That'd be fucking awesome. I'd love to. But I've never been to Whistler. Is that the biggest? Is that the best mountain you'd recommend up there?
I'd say so. From what I hear, I'm not a big skier, but just Whistler in general. I mean, they did the Olympics there. Like, it's pretty like notable worldwide. So that's why I was always mention it, because obviously you're just over in Washington State, right? So
yeah.
So there you go.
Just south of Canada.
Yeah. No, it is a bit of a hike, though. I was looking up like the distance between Spokane and like Vancouver, and it's not as close as people would think, because it's like really high up, right? So, just before we go, I mentioned Michael Chiesa. I know he's a big Seahawks fan. Are you a sports fan at all? Do you follow the Seahawks or any other teams?
I am, but this year I haven't been, just because I've been in my camp. But yeah, Seattle all the way.
Yeah, you becoming a Kraken fan? They're obviously, I know they didn't do so well last season, but the NHL is there. That's pretty cool.
I don't really follow that as much, the hockey league at all. So I'm not. I guess if I was to pick, I'd pick Kraken.
There you go. It's good to hear, man. Brady, thanks for doing this. If there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, just I want to thank my coach, Rick Little, Fernando Thola, all the teammates back at Jiu-Jitsu. Thanks, guys.
All right.